What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. I'm Arris with Tim Conley. What's up, Tim?
What's up, man? What's up, Variant Nation? Welcome back to the show.
Yes.
We got a handful of things to talk about today.
We do. We got some fun ones this week.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always got fun stuff, but we got some DC news, Marvel, Fantastic Beasts.
But here's the thing, right? Is it me or is the stuff we're talking about today, which is we're returning to Moon Knight, Fantastic Beasts. We saw it. We're going to talk about it a little bit. So spoilers for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the DC news. Is it me or does all of it kind of feel like a little bit meh?
I don't think so.
Do you feel excited about any of it?
The DC stuff, I'm actually, although redundant, I feel, because I feel like with DC, this type of conversation we're about to have happens like once a year now.
That's what I'm saying.
But, Moon Knight, great episode. I guess there's just not too much happened. And then Fantastic Beasts, not too much happened.
It's just like,
but it's good stuff.
I know. All right. Well, whatever. Let's get into it because we do have, Moon Knight. We saw the third episode. Spoilers for Moon Knight. We're going to dive into that first. And then we're going to get from there. We'll jump into our thoughts on the Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald.
Right.
No, what? The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
Even you got Crimes of Grindelwald on the mind, huh?
Whatever. And then we'll jump into the DC merger stuff and some of the news that's coming out about what may be happening or what we might be looking forward to. We don't really know. There's just a shakeup. The expected shakeup over at DC and Warner because of the merger with Discovery is now well underway.
Dude, and Zaslav has got some things to say.
Yeah, he's got some things to say.
That's the Discovery CEO. And Zaslav, I'm just going to say his last name a lot because it's fun to say. Good old Zaslav.
Good old Zaslav.
But Moon Knight, episode 3. Again, spoilers for Moon Knight, Fantastic Beasts, and everything we're going to talk about today. But I loved it. I really liked the episode.
Did you love it?
Okay, I guess I exaggerated. I really liked it. It wasn't mind-blowing, but overall, I'm still really, really digging the series.
On a scale of episode 1 to 3, it falls where amongst the 3? At the halfway point.
So I really like them all. I would say I love the first episode. That one I would actually say I love.
I agree, yeah.
And I think gradually I think the order they've been released, the first is my favorite, then second, and then third, actually. But the first episode was just so good for me. I really because I think I said it when we talked about it last week, that it just really confirmed what I was hoping the show was. So it just got me excited. Plus, it was the introduction to it, right? Where you're like, oh, so this is how things are going to work. This is how he's going to go in and out of his personalities. And you're figuring out what he's figuring out at the same time. And it was the first time we saw that. But yeah, the first episode, then 2 and 3. But even though the first is my favorite, I really dug the newest one as they're starting to creep towards like, oh, what are these revelations where they tease the third personality in the third episode, which is really cool. And obviously everyone's going to assume it's Jake Lockley. But is it? That would be the most common thing to think if you're basing it off the comics, like, us comic fans would. But it's like, I feel like that's too simple, maybe. I feel like they might go another way with that. So I'm curious.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, too, because I saw a few people after episode 2 start to talk about theories or give their theory that Jake Lockley was going to show up and that they were already teasing him, which I saw the same thing. And then in the third one, I mean, they're just kind of full on. There's another personality in there somewhere that's now neither one of them know what's going on because something else is taking over. So it's just a matter of like, are they going to go Jake Lockley? I would imagine that would be the case. That would be my take. I don't, but there's
Makes
a part of
sense.
Yeah, but there's a part of me that because they've already changed up a lot of stuff. So there's a part of me that's like, are they going to change something else and throw something else and new in there? But the likelihood is no. Likelihood is just going to end up being Jake Lockley. So I am excited to see what they do with that. But I thought the episode as a whole, it didn't fall flat. That's not the right way to call it. It just felt uneventful. And I had the most issues out of the 3.
I think, again, I still really liked it, mainly because we got to see we saw the most of Khonshu in this episode.
Yes.
Which is what I really dug. And then you even got, we see the other like Egyptian gods.
They dove heavy into the Egyptian gods.
Right.
Yeah.
And I liked how they were in Egypt and stuff. Gave me, the mummy vibe. Even the music for this series, especially this episode, where it's like
the score is dope.
While watching this third episode, I think I said it before, but as the series progresses, it keeps like confirming that I love how even though it's a Marvel show, it feels so different from Marvel things. At least for me. Like I know the thing with Marvel too is like they try to that's their kind of their thing where like Ant-Man's like a heist film, the WandaVision is kind of like this weird like throwback comedy thing. So everything is very different. But for me, a lot of those, yes, obviously different, it still felt very Marvel, where this still feels obviously Marvel, but it feels the most detached. I think that too, because it's not really connecting to anything either, where WandaVision is, Loki is, Hawkeye is, there's a lot of, the Falcon Winter Soldier was, a lot of those, they had a lot of references to other properties and events that happened. The Hawkeye freaking started off with the Battle of New York, which is awesome and stuff, but I like that now we're getting something that is just, it's in that world, but we're not referencing anything really yet, right? We're just establishing this character, and then by the end of the series, we'll tie him to like something else or something new that's coming. And I think that's refreshing because that's what kind of Marvel was known for in Phase 1, right? Where you didn't really get any tie-ins till like the post-credit scene. But now we're over 10 years in that they're rightfully so, because they have so much continuity established that they're referencing this or this character, or you see this, or that's because of this. But this is very much like we're just doing our thing, and I think that's the best way to put it. It's very refreshing for me, and I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. I think it's certainly, as you just said, it feels like the most unique of all it very much feels like a standalone series so far of everything that they've done. I love what they've done with the character. I really liked how they explored Khonshu a lot more, the Egyptian gods. They brought all that to bear. They were in the, that temple in the heart of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I thought that was a really cool ad. There's one scene in episode 3 that I was like, what? I could not help. I just kept thinking to myself, like, what's happening? Was where they introduce Anton Mogert.
Oh, with the jousting like kind of thing?
Yes, and the horses and the javelins and all that kind of stuff. I thought going into that was going to be a really cool action sequence, and it just came off very odd to me. It was just that entire sequence it didn't play as well for me as I guess I had hoped. It's just some of it came off really cheesy and even kind of slow. And I didn't get the whole like javelins and the people on horses and stuff. It just felt very odd. Yeah, it felt very odd for me. So that whole scene fell flat, and I don't know. It just felt kind of anticlimactic to some extent. I didn't love some of the things that they did, with Khonshu, changing the stars and how they imprisoned him in stone. However, it looked cool. I'm so torn because it was cool, but it just, I don't know. It just fell flat for me to some degree in some areas. I'm saying that while I said overall, I would say I still liked the episode. It was fine. It just was my least favorite by far so far.
Ethan Hawke though, man.
Ethan Hawke. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow continues to be a bright spot in the show. He was really good in this show. His interaction and his resentment towards Khonshu and how he plays that is really, really good. And Oscar Isaac, man, he just continues to be very, very good bouncing between the different roles. Although there was a couple of moments in this episode 3, where I felt like he broke the continuity between the characters a little bit in terms of the way that he sounded for a moment. It was that one scene in particular where they show him transfer into Steven, where he gives Steven the body.
Oh, towards the end of the episode where he's trying to figure out the map of the stars.
It's unbroken. It's the first time that you see him
go see the switch in his face
from Mark to Steven and use each voice in continuity without a break. And that part, it looked like he like his voice was a little bit different or whatever, but he was overall, he just continues to be very good.
I actually rewound that part as I was watching it the first time because I thought it was cool to, like you said, it's the first time you get the camera doesn't break from him. You get to see like
that was
his
the first
facial expression switch. And I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. Cause it's like, kind of reminds me again of James McAvoy in Split when he had to do the same thing, going through all those different personalities. And I'm also very curious to see how it's going when he's playing 3, because we know there's a third personality. So he's ultimately going to introduce a third one. So I'm like, oh, that's going to be interesting to see him bounce back and forth, because this has been really, really cool. Because you have Layla, his love interest, obviously his wife, in here. But those are like the 3 characters in this show. Really, I mean, obviously Arthur hero. But as far as Moon Knight's concerned, it's like the lead characters. It's like basically Oscar Isaac pulling double, triple duty than Layla and Arthur. So it's like Oscar Isaac is pulling the brunt of this because you got Khonshu too, but it's really, really cool. And I think he's doing a great job. He's definitely, he's just fun to watch. And Khonshu, I thought it was really interesting. Again, we said spoilers, the way this ended where, he's been imprisoned by the other gods.
Imprisoned in stone, yeah.
But now that means freaking Spectre and Stephen Grant don't have the power of Khonshu anymore. So, like, what's going to happen in the 4th episode? Like, how long are you going to keep him depowered?
Right.
Because we got 3 episodes left.
Well, he says when he's changing the sky, he said, tell Mark to come save me.
Yeah, so.
Come set me free sort of thing.
And
I don't know how he's going to do that.
Right. And one of my minor gripes would be is we're halfway through the season and we haven't seen that much Moon Knight. Like, we get a little bit of it each. We got a really little piece at the end of episode 1.
Yeah.
We got like probably 2-3 minutes in episode 2 and another 2 or 3 minutes in episode 3.
Yeah.
We just got that fight at the thing. And it's like, we're not seeing.
That's why I think it felt like anticlimactic.
And we're halfway through.
Yeah. Uneventful.
Yeah. Episode 3 is the halfway point.
Because that one scene with the the Knights of the Round Table, like that one scene with the horse javelin training, whatever, that was really the most action of the entire episode, I think. Right. There was some other little things here and there, but that was the most. And it was just okay. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like a jaw-dropping anything or scene or anything like that. It was actually kind of cheesy to me. I mean, for just a lack of, I don't know how else to explain it. But so I was kind of like left, meh.
I didn't have any
This is how I started out the episode.
Yeah. Meh. I didn't have any meh feelings for me. It's just, I think I just want more Moon Knight now. Because again, we're halfway through. Yes. I want to see more Moon Knight.
I wanted to get a little grittier. I wanted to get a little grittier. I went into this like wondering if they were going to get too gritty. And now I'm like, this is not gritty enough.
Yeah, even
now this is the part where people are just like, there's no pleasing this guy. That's probably
even true. The fight sequences in here, you see like blood here and there. He pulls knives out of people and stuff like that. But I was actually, because I remember Kevin Feige was saying this is going to like push boundaries as far as, I mean, we still have half the season left, so who knows? But as of now, I'm like, interesting, because what I've seen thus far. I do feel like
the tone is set, though.
The tone is set, but thus far, first 3 episodes, it's not that drastically different than any other violence we've seen. I would say it's
not at all. I would say like Infinity War is more violent.
Yeah, so, it's Moon Knight, man. Come on, let's get a little bit of blood.
Yeah, I mean, again, overall, I'm happy with the series so far. I've enjoyed it.
Same here.
This episode was just a little bit, like, it felt a little bit fillerish.
Do you think, here's a good, because everyone, it seems
that's
like.
so mean. I hate saying stuff like that. That's not true. It didn't feel fillerish. It was just a little slower. That's the better way to say it.
It seems like the general consensus, the majority, I would say, the majority of people's favorite MCU Disney Plus show is Loki. I feel like if you were to take a vote, most people would vote that that's their favorite. That would win out on the vote. So with that said, if that's like the pinnacle thus far, how would you rate being halfway through the season with Moon Knight? How would you rate the first halves of Moon Knight compared to Loki? Obviously, we got 3 episodes left.
Just Loki?
To just Loki. Where would you do you think at this pace you'd end up liking it just as much as Loki, more than Loki, or no shot being Loki level?
Oh boy. I guess Loki has somewhat of an unfair advantage because there was such a clear tie-in to, and an impact to everything else Marvel, right, in the MCU, and it was clearly going to have a massive, massive role to play in everything that was going to happen going forward, or at least it was going to play a role to some degree. Whereas Moon Knight, as we talked about already, feels very, it is very isolated. Just as an overall series, they're actually not pretty. Actually, in some ways, they're comparable because if you recall, Loki also had that 3rd or 4th episode where I was just like, this episode was a little slower for me and had some things that I didn't really like. So it was almost like that halfway kind of slowed down, and then the rest of it was fantastic. So with Moon Knight, it was the same thing. The first 2 episodes I thought were fantastic. I actually liked the second one a little bit better than the first, and I loved the first one. So I don't, I'm anticipating 4 through 6 are, it's going to ramp up and it's going to be solid. So I would say, probably just a notch down from Loki, right? A notch down because Loki, I don't know, Loki had that the what's the word I'm looking for? The
Spark?
chemistry
Chemistry
between Loki and Mobius, Mr. Mobius. The chemistry between those two characters in that show
was pretty great.
Was fantastic. And that's hard to, it's hard to find, first of all. And then when you do, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so while Oscar Isaac is doing an incredible job in this, Ethan Hawke is doing great as Arthur Harrow. Freaking Khonshu is ripped right out of the comics almost. So all of those elements are great, but I just think that extra dynamic gave that Loki a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think it could be comparable or even better depending how the next 3 episodes go. But as of now, I mean, it's definitely fighting for a spot. I'm digging it because the 3
That's good.
As of now, Hawkeye, again, that was a sleeper for me. That's like, I think probably still my favorite of the MCU shows thus far. But Hawkeye, Loki, and now Moon Knight, I think are going to end up being like my trinity of the ones thus released thus far.
What would be your number 1? Still Hawkeye?
I think so. Because again, for me personally, just the tone resonated with me a lot, and I loved the relationship between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop.
Yeah, it was
and
good.
a lot of those moments and the family aspect hit with me really well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that was they just did such a good job fleshing out Hawkeye's character in the MCU, and it really established how like he's the human like backbone of the MCU, and they really show why he's important.
That one really caught you off guard.
Dude, yeah, it really did. And I think that's probably a
guard.
reason why I like, because I'm like, wow, I was not expecting this, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Moon Knight's great. Can't wait for episode 4.
Yeah, same here. I'm looking forward to it. Let us know what you guys think about the Moon Knight series so far. It has been, after we talked about it last time, I was looking a little bit more, and the opinions on Moon Knight are more polarized than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I told you.
So it's very interesting.
It is, like, again, it's making me a little nervous. But before we move on, I do want to say, it's making me a little nervous because when people got the screeners, they were saying, we said this the last podcast or so, that the first episode was great, and then as the series went, they progressively liked each episode less and less. And for me, as I just said, my order is 1 is my favorite, then 2, then 3, so that they are getting less and less for me as well right now currently too. So I'm like, okay, episode 4 has got to shoot back up then, because
That's interesting.
So I'm curious.
I did not get that because I actually liked 2 a little bit more than 1. I liked both of them. They were pretty much neck and neck, and I think I might have liked the second episode a little bit more. Just because it got more into him realizing the personality splits and starting to really get into that. So I 2 might have had a small edge of it, but I loved both. 3 was the drop off for me.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what happens next and how Khonshu's released. Maybe he just throws it on the ground, breaks it, and he's released. I like how Khonshu, they're playing him like in the comics, how he's the rebel of all the gods. Yeah. He's like the one who's like, yeah, but I'm going to interfere anyway.
Yeah. You know what I didn't get, and we'll move on just very quickly, just going back to things that didn't make sense to me, is these are the gods of Egypt. They all meet, right? And Arthur Harrow is legitimately trying to free Amit, right? Khonshu comes before them to say, hey, dude's trying to free Amit.
That bit was really cool. Oscar Isaac, like being Khonshu. That bit was really cool too.
And then Khonshu is like,
he's like yelling it out of him.
And he's really like, what's happening? But they're just was like, oh yeah, no, he's innocent of what he's being accused of. I mean, how easy could they figure? These are gods. A, how do they not know that already? And B, how easy would it be for them to confirm that?
Listen, Sam, when you run a cult, you know how to work people's emotions and feelings, okay?
It just, I just thought that was like a
even
really,
gods.
It was kind of it felt like an easy or too easy way of trying to move past that.
Yeah. Well, how does Superman shave, huh?
You got it. Anyway.
Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
We saw it last night.
We did.
And what'd you think, Tim?
You just toss it right. Okay, so let's start with a couple of things, I guess. We have to lay some groundwork because it has truly been remarkable to me since the inception of the Fantastic Beasts franchise. The real like polarization around this franchise compared to the Harry Potter films. The fan base is kind of all over the place with it.
Very much so.
And there's a lot of like actual anger. There's so much controversy now surrounding, unfortunately, the entire Wizarding World now for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
It's not one thing, it's multiple now, especially with the recent thing with Ezra Miller and all of the fallout from that. And he might not even be doing anything, like the Flash included, all of that stuff.
Warner Brothers is like,
yeah, it's just gotten to this place where I feel like there's just this dark cloud hovering over the entire franchise, unfortunately.
Is Warner Brothers like cursed in general?
I don't know.
Right? Because like the DC stuff has been like up and down for them. The Wizarding World is now going up and down for them. And these are like the DC and Wizarding World stuff, I would say, is easily Warner Brothers like most like profitable like film franchises. So it's like, what's happening? They're like cursed.
Maybe they need to go meet the gods at the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Maybe they do. Maybe they need to get Dumbledore there to like give them, remove the hex.
Yeah, something like needs to happen.
But anyway, to your point, it is very true that for whatever reason, the Fantastic Beasts franchise, since its inception, has been like polarizing. Like, and it's kind of shocking. I really forgot because the first film I think got like 60 or 70 on Rotten Tomato, and a little bit of a higher score by audience. But The Crimes of Grindelwald, the second one, it was like a 30, 37 on Rotten Tomato. I didn't remember that. I'm like, wow. So like critics did not like the second one.
This time around, at least so far, the audience score is much higher. Critic score is lower.
What is it at Rotten Tomatoes right now?
Last I looked last night, it was in the 30s for critics, and it was in the 80s for fans.
I'm gonna look this up.
So with that kind of table set with like this, there's just a bizarre amount of controversy surrounding this and a dark cloud that has been hanging over this franchise. I personally really enjoy them.
Right.
I love going back to the Wizarding World whenever possible. I think it's been very fun exploring the backstory of what led to the Harry Potter stories. The young Dumbledore and his war with Grindelwald, and the rise of the first Dark Lord of the Wizarding World, and all of that stuff. Super fun. It kind of started with the first one was fun, and then the second one happened. I enjoyed the second one. I just thought it was fun. It had its issues, but it was still fun. I had a great time with it. Then all of the Johnny Depp stuff happened. And, that kind of put like a weird, now, it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen with Johnny Depp? Who's going to replace him? Then it was Mads. I personally liked that switch. I know you did too. I thought he was going to bring like a darker edge to the character, which he absolutely did, now that we've seen the film. We put up a couple of episodes up on the main channel, history of Albus Dumbledore and who is Gellert Grindelwald, which is basically like an origins bio of Grindelwald on the channel. And man, I don't know if YouTube is throttling these episodes or what, but even in the comment section, it's a torn, polarized perspective on it. And for a myriad of reasons, the stuff around J.K. Rowling and blah, 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 blah. And for me, I'm like, I'm just there for the Wizarding World. I'm not there for what's going on with Johnny Depp and his trial with Amber Heard. I'm not there for whatever politics J.K. Rowling is tied up in. I'm not there for, whoever Ezra Miller recently choked or punched in the face. Like, I'm not there for any of that. I'm there for the stories of the Wizarding World. I'm a fan of it, just like a lot of people. Yeah. And I just want to go return to that world. And so going back into this film, I was very much looking forward to, seeing, first and foremost, I wanted to see Mads Mikkelsen take on the role of Gellert Grindelwald. I thought he was going to bring like a much more serious, darker edge to the character, which I personally felt it needed because of what the character is supposed to represent, which is a Hitler-esque type character. You could tell, Rowling herself said that. But anyway, so I was very interested in that. I also wanted to see how they were going to roll out Dumbledore's backstory and show that in live action. And overall, I thought they did a good job with all of the above. It was definitely a darker, heavier tone as a film than the first two, pretty significantly so, I would say. But just like what we were saying about Moon Knight episode 3, it was as a whole, I liked the movie. I enjoyed it, but it was rather uneventful.
Mm-hmm.
It was very anticlimactic by the end. Did we already say spoilers, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so just want to make sure. It was very anticlimactic by the end, and there was some story plot, issues for me in terms of like continuity, and just cohesion that just didn't feel quite right, especially when it came to Credence and Aurelius Dumbledore, and we learned that he's actually what's his face?
The son of Aberforth.
Aberforth, thank you. We learned that he's Aberforth's son, not a brother.
Yeah.
But there was some ambiguity about whether or not Albus and Aberforth knew about him or not, or when they knew about him. They seemed to kind of tell you like they were aware that there was a child, but they didn't know it was him. And then they learned that it was him. They really weren't sure what to do about it or what he had been through. Yeah, but then at the end, he says, did you ever think of me? And he said, always. And that kind of threw some ambiguity into it. And you could kind of answer that by saying he meant I didn't know it was you, but I always knew that my child was out there.
Right, that's how I took it.
But it was just, I just didn't feel like they did in some areas, it didn't tie some things together strong enough. But overall, I liked the film. It was just okay.
Yeah, I like the film. I will say, kind of like Moon Knight, because it's also 3 movies, 3 episodes. This is my least favorite out of the 3.
Right.
This is my least. So for my order of people who are curious, Crimes of Grindelwald is actually my number 1. Then the first one, Fantastic Beasts: Where to Find Them, and now Secrets of Dumbledore. But I did like the movie. It's just, you know what it is too? I really, I'm a big fan of Mads. He is a fantastic actor. Yeah, he was great in Rogue One. He's great at Hannibal. Like, he's just good all the way around. If he's in a movie, I'm going to see it, right? Yep. And I was excited to see him in this film and stuff. But I really wish Johnny Depp would have stayed on, not that he left, I really wish they wouldn't have let him go, relieved him of his duties, because I personally think Johnny Depp I liked his version of Grindelwald better, is what I'm saying here. I liked his more, like, fantastical, whimsical, eccentric, like, vibe for Grindelwald, even, like, down to the look. Like, we had, like, the one messed up eye, the bleached hair, the crazy kind of wizardy getup, like, everything about it. I actually rewatched his speech in the 3rd act of Crimes of Grindelwald, where he's talking to the wizard. I was like, yes, awesome. Like, it's dark, but, like, fun dark. Where Mads, it's like dark. It's just, he plays it very straight, like a straight, good, very different. But for me, in this, wizarding world, it's fantasy. I want that kind of, like, eccentric, quirky, like, out there Johnny Depp vibe. And I think I would have liked the movie a lot more because having Depp in the 3rd film, I think would have changed the dynamic of the whole film
completely,
and probably would have made me like it just as much as the sequel. I mean, as the 2nd film or more. Yeah. So that's like my number 1 gripe. But I do agree with,
which is interesting because we went into this thinking the opposite.
It was because Mads is great, and we're like, oh, this could be like really cool. But he just played it so straight, which is fine.
Well, that was the intent, clearly.
Yeah, it's just, but like, I also kind of don't like when movies don't acknowledge. Like, I get it when they don't acknowledge things because like we're just gonna move past it.
There was no way to.
Yeah, but like the thing for me, like I told you my concerns too, were like, at least like keep the look of like, because they completely overhauled the look of the character. Like I get, it's a new actor. Fine, there's at that point you have to replace the character with someone, but it's like he looked completely different. Yeah, like he had all of a sudden his eye was normal again. He didn't have the blonde hair. Like,
well, it was a different color eye. It just they toned it down a ton.
I mean, but it was like so minute.
It was way toned down.
Like even the hair. Completely different. Like
it was basically his hair.
The way he dressed, it was just normal, like Wizarding World, like suits and stuff like that. It's like, so it was a complete overhaul. And I'm like, but you already established, like, you gotta at least keep the look.
Yeah. I will say, and this is where I think I completely agree with you, is I do think they went way too straight Nazi with it.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, down to, they were at the German ministry. You know what I mean? Like the entire, half the movie is in Germany. And during the era of World War II, so it was too close to being a straight line parallel
You know what it is?
That it just gave it almost like I don't know, maybe it's just the times we're in. It just gave it too much of a heaviness.
It's like you said, I think Mad's, portrayal was too real world or too serious to like real person, where it's like, I'm watching the Wizarding World. I don't want real person. I want like, crazy fantastic. I mean, you're talking about like goblins and stuff like that and trolls and stuff. It's like you're wizards and witches. So, and you already established Grindelwald. Like the opening scene in Crimes of Grindelwald, that whole thing. That is like that first 10 minutes of the Crimes of Grindelwald is a perfect example of what I wish this one was, where that whole sequence was like, it's fantasy. You got all they're changing faces. It's crazy. It's eccentric. Like that's what I wanted. And this was a lot more, serious, played serious.
I was comparing it earlier when we were talking here in the office. A bunch of us were talking about it. And I was comparing it to the leap from the tone of the first 3 films of Harry Potter to when you get to, let's say, Order of the Phoenix or Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, you wouldn't even say Prisoner of Azkaban? Because Prisoner of Azkaban was a big shift.
It was, but it still had that very fantasy-esque vibe.
It did, but that's when Yates took over, and it was like the color palette.
No, Yates took over a couple of movies later.
Wait, who did? No, Yates did 3.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. It was, let me see here. Let me look it up. It was...
it was Alfonso Cuarón.
Cuarón, thank you,
Alfonso Cuarón, you're right. He's the one who changed the tone. Yep. That was
what it was changed, but not a ton. It was a little bit darker because it was meant to be almost like a Halloween film.
Yeah, but when you go like from Chamber of the Secrets...
The werewolf
vibe, but when you go to Chamber of Secrets to Azkaban...
It is definitely
that's a shift.
It is
a big shift.
But if you go back and you watch Prisoner of Azkaban, it still has a very hardcore, like, kids' fantasy vibe to it.
Yeah.
Even though it does get a little darker. Because the kids get a little older, it gets a little darker. It's Cuarón, so his vibe is very different.
That's kind of the brilliance of Harry Potter, though, that every film ages with the characters. Yeah.
So then you move to Goblet of Fire, and that one was directed by Mike Newell, and that was really for me where you started feeling like a transition happening. It was a totally different tone and vibe in there. It was like this, had like a coming of age vibe to it, but. For me, Order of the Phoenix is where it really started to move. That's where Yates comes in, and at least I believe so. Let me see Order of the Phoenix. I'm pretty sure Order of the Phoenix.
I think he did the last 4, if I remember correctly. Yes, because he's done 7 total, so he did the last 4. Because he did the 3 Fantastic Beasts.
Hitting the wrong button.
And he did Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and then Deathly Hallows 1 and 2.
So exactly. So yeah, I was right. Order of the Phoenix is where he comes in, and that's where you really started to see them move towards not just a more serious tone. It became more real world. They started grounding the film more in London. You started seeing more scenes shot in the real world as outside of the Wizarding world of Hogwarts, etc. And that was intended to ground it and give it more of a real world element. And that for me. That's where I would compare this compared to the previous 2. The first 2, you were in the Wizarding world. You felt like you were in the Wizarding. Even when you were in New York, you still felt like you were in a fantasy world, because they're doing it as an era piece also back in the 30s, 40s. So you feel like you're in a fantasy world. This one, they went, with the going to Germany and the clear references to like Nazi Germany and Hitler and the Fourth Reich and all of that. Or the Third Reich, that gave it more of like it grounded it more than I thought they were going to do. So even while I was saying like Mads Mikkelsen will give the character more weight, the weight that this character I think because I thought who played Voldemort?
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes, yeah. So Ralph Fiennes, even though Voldemort was a character, he brought a gravity to that character.
Yeah.
He just carried a weight and a gravitas that made you, scared of him. He made you nervous when he was in the room. And that's what I felt was lacking with Depp's, version of Grindelwald. And I thought,
oh, really?
Yeah. But they did go way more serious with it than I thought they were going to and played it very, very straight.
So going back to like that tone shift, I feel like with the Harry Potter films, like all their tone shifts as the films progressed, like were earned and rewarded. It made sense because the kids were getting older. The audience was getting older. That's why people
it got older with the audience.
Right. Yeah. Like every time when Harry was 13, I was like 13, 14. So I was
Right.
aging, a lot of us were aging with the character, and it just made sense that it's like, they were getting older and stuff like that. And it was like a natural progression. I feel like Fantastic Beasts has those characters. First, they're not kids, so they're not really growing.
Right.
And two, like, it hasn't really been that long to like earn that like transition, like that growing yet. So I feel like that shift from 2 to 3 wasn't earned, so it didn't feel smooth.
It did feel more abrupt.
Right. It didn't feel like as a smooth transition.
Because again, you had between Chambers, you had Chamber of Secrets, then a small leap to Prisoner of Azkaban. Then you had another transitional leap to Goblet of Fire. And then it started getting really serious in Order of the Phoenix.
And again, the fact that they're kids, they're growing. You see them growing on screen. You're going to. It's like that made sense. This is a movie of adults. It's like, you're not going to really look any different from 30 to 40. So it's like, they could all, So yeah. But again, I like the movie. It's just my least favorite out of the 3. And I'm hoping like if we get, because that's another thing I will say. We don't know. Warner Brothers has not greenlit 4 and 5 because this is supposed to be a 5-story arc.
This is a big one to mention, yeah.
Yeah. This film, Fantastic Beasts, is supposed to be 5 movies.
Right.
But Warner Brothers recently said that if this one doesn't perform well, they may not go forward with 4 and 5. And which is very evident at the end of this movie. Because one of my complaints to you when we left the movie, we were talking outside the theater, was I'm like, Fantastic Beasts 1, it ended with Colin Farrell's character turning into Johnny Depp. Grindelwald. You're like, oh, Grindelwald was in disguise this whole time. It's like, Johnny Depp is actually Grindelwald. He's going to play him in the next movie.
Yeah.
Then in the Crimes of Grindelwald, it ends with like Queenie, leaving with Grindelwald, and she changed teams, and he's risen, he's gathered this army to like, go after the Muggles and take over the world. And you're like, oh, that's a big cliffhanger. What's going to happen? We're going to have a war between Dumbledore. That's another thing. We find out that Dumbledore, has a well, at the time we thought was a brother, but there's another Dumbledore, which was Credence, and there's all these big cliffhangers. This movie, it ends with Grindelwald getting away.
Yes.
But like it also, the way it ends with Dumbledore walking off, in the streets of New York is very much like it kind of concluded where it's like, we know Grindelwald got away, but there was nothing like come back because this is going to happen. Like there's nothing that's like a stinger where it's like, Yeah,
it was a surprisingly capped off film.
Like you could very much, I think was intentional. They're like, hey, you need to do it like in a way where it's like, we could keep going, but also it's like, it's kind of wrapped up.
Yeah. For me, if they don't come back and they don't finish this,
that would be very sad.
That would be a real bummer for me, because one of the things I was looking forward to most with this series was seeing the war between Dumbledore
we didn't get to see that.
And Grindelwald, and seeing Dumbledore, basically take power as the headmaster of Hogwarts, but also gain possession of the Elder Wand and all of that. And that did not happen yet.
That's another kind of one of my gripes. I thought we were going to didn't you think we were going to get a big fight between Grindelwald and Dumbledore in here?
And it ended up being extremely anticlimactic.
Very short.
Yeah,
very
short. Anticlimactic.
I think the fight between Dumbledore and Credence was actually, in the middle of the film, was actually a bigger fight.
Also very short.
Short, but that's to my point.
But it was cool.
Cool, but to my point, that's the better fight, and it was still really short.
Yeah.
Just to show you how short the fight with Grindelwald was.
I agree. I mean, it was, and the other thing that I didn't like, I shouldn't say I didn't like it, but it was just an odd, they didn't explain it like thoroughly to me, was the the blood pact.
Mm-hmm.
It breaks in this moment at the end of the film where Grindelwald goes to attack Aurelius Dumbledore, who finally steps out against Grindelwald.
Ezra Miller's character.
Yeah, Ezra Miller's character, Credence. He steps up at the end. He's dying now, and he exposes what Grindelwald's trying to do in deceiving the entire wizarding world so that he can take power as the chancellor, or whatever they call it. President, what is it? I don't know.
I don't remember either.
Ambassador, whatever.
The guy who's going to rule all the wizards and witches.
Yeah, he's going to be the leader of the entire wizarding world. And they do this whole thing where he kills this magical beast and that looks into the souls of wizards and witches and see who has a pure soul. And they use that to determine who is worthy to lead them, because it can see whether someone has a pure soul or not. So he kills one. It's a very rare creature. He kills one, then resurrects it. So basically he can fake this moment where it bows to him and tells the wizarding world that he's pure of heart and blah, blah, blah. So he can rise to power. So Credence knows all this. He outs him at the end. Grindelwald attacks him. And right as he's about to attack him, both Aberforth and Albus step in, and they throw a blocking spell, basically. And it connects Albus's wand inadvertently, I guess, with a Grindelwald. And this is the moment where all of a sudden the blood pact, what do they call it? It's a blood pact, or do they have another word for it that I'm forgetting?
I forget the name of it.
Yeah, we'll just call it blood pact because I can't remember. But it all of a sudden it just breaks. And he never really fully explains that. He just says, yeah, he attacked and I protected, and it was fate.
Well, when Newt asks him, he basically says, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He says, Dumbledore himself is like, I'm not sure. He alludes something to like, he said, call it fate. Call it fate or love or whatever. And it just reversed and broke it.
Yeah.
So
they didn't really answer that. And it's like, okay, were they planning to answer that more in the future? Did Albus Dumbledore know that was going to happen or not? Because in the first film, in the Crimes of Grindelwald, remember, he looks at things and says, can you break it? And he's like, maybe, just maybe. But then he says it can't be in this new one. Yeah. In the Secrets of Dumbledore, it wraps around his hand. He tells them, they make this really big deal about the fact it's like, it's unbreakable. And if I even think about defying him or betraying him, like the ramifications would be extreme.
This thing will like kill me.
Right. It'll kill him and it could kill other people. Yeah. Right. So they make this really, hard point that this is an unbreakable thing. And then it gets broken kind of abruptly, and they really don't explain how or why. But in that moment when it breaks, it shatters, him and, Grindelwald are able to go to combat for a brief moment, because prior to that, they can't move against each other.
Well, did you find that a little weird too? Like those moments where, because it happened, the first time it happened when Dumbledore was fighting Aurelius in the streets, like the whole mirror dimension thing where you see in the thing and, and it flips and he's, they're fighting in the mirror realm, which by the way, though that was short, how dope was it seeing?
It was very cool.
How Dumbledore is like, dude, you're no match for me.
That was the coolest part about it.
This is not like a fight.
Because they build up Credence to be really powerful.
Yeah.
Which, that was another thing. I did not think that they did enough, because they really built him up. He's got all this power built up inside him.
Yeah.
And then,
but is it just Dumbledore's that much more powerful? That's kind of how I took it, because he was like, you're not going to, like, he didn't even land a single blow. It was like, no.
I'm just worried, I guess, like all of these things, I guess, mount up to me it has me worried that they rushed certain things. That, in other words, instead of continuing to really flesh out in this movie and set precedent of like Credence being incredibly powerful.
Well, yeah.
Right? And setting more stages and like setting things up to a climactic moment. It was just kind of very brief moments, and then they just kind of wrapped things up.
Yeah.
So it has me worried that they're very much in the line of, we're just going to probably move on.
But the reason I brought that up though, with the fight with Aurelius, is like, they explained that, but did you not find, even though they kind of explained it by like just showing you, wasn't it a little confusing, especially at the end when he was fighting Grindelwald, where how like when they were fighting, everything stopped around them? Yeah. Too. It's like, so you're fighting, so now everyone else is gone?
Yeah.
Like, are you guys going to like an alternate dimension? Like, how is this? I don't feel like they explained enough, like, where did you guys go? Like, why is everyone else gone? You were on top of like, this massive like castle with all these people here.
Bhutan,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like,
the temple.
Okay, so you fight and now they're gone? Like, I don't get it. Maybe it's something I miss.
I felt like we were supposed to take it as, that spell, that very, very powerful spell broke.
Yeah.
And when it did, it created almost like this bubble environment.
Suppose.
For the two people that were locked in this pact, and they were fighting
bubble environment.
Yeah, I mean, it was, that's the only, I guess that's what we were supposed to take away from it.
Sure.
I mean, maybe for those of you out there who know much more about or much deeper into the Wizarding World lore, maybe you know more about like what would have caused that.
You stupid muggles.
Yeah, you stooges. Maybe that's the case, and we're just not aware of it, and that's fine. But it was just not for the layman, let's say, for us muggles, as you say. The
no-mage.
It was not super clear as to what was going on. But that for me was the lesser issue than, well, how did that all of a sudden break and why? And they didn't really explain that. And then it just kind of abruptly ends with Grindelwald getting away. He looks at Dumbledore and he said, I was never your friend. I was never your enemy. I wasn't then. I'm not now.
I think in summary for me, I think I like the movie, right? Because Shakeup was awesome.
He's my favorite character.
He's probably my favorite character.
He's my favorite
too.
character of the entire series.
He's freaking hilarious.
Dan Fogler is great as Jacob. Yeah,
I really like Queenie. I like Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander. Theseus, his brother. I pretty much like all the characters. And
the cast is great.
The cast is great, and again, I like the film. It's just I really wanted Depp back around playing Grindelwald. I really wanted that, and I really wanted a actual big battle that was teased between Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Yeah.
Like I really, really want that.
There really was no setup.
And even I told you this, you were laughing at me last night. I was like, and this film is called The Secrets, plural, of Dumbledore. We got like one secret.
Yeah.
I was like, because for those of you who read the books and know a lot about, the Wizarding World and Harry Potter's lore, there's a lot that I thought there was going to be unpacked in this film with Dumbledore's past.
They didn't even really mention his father.
That's what I'm saying, because his father, Percival, ended up being imprisoned after,
Azkaban.
Sent to Azkaban after defending his daughter from Muggle kids that were like making fun of her and stuff like that because she was a witch. He gets sent to Azkaban.
Because he kills the kids.
Yeah. Then, Dumbledore goes to Hogwarts, and while he's away, his mom dies, and then eventually, which in this movie, you see his sister dies. So that happens. So that's like the only thing they touch on.
Well, the mom dies because of Ariana, the sister,
right?
Because she's an Obscurious, which I don't know if that was already known, and I just didn't know it. But in this movie, I was like, oh, was that already a known thing?
I don't know,
because I don't know that
I didn't know
heard
that from. I haven't read all the Fantastic Beasts books and stuff like that, but from my research, that didn't come up. I don't know if that's a movie thing.
I did not know that until there. You guys can let us know if that was already a known thing and we just didn't know it. But that to me was something new in the film that I was like, oh, she's an Obscurious, and that's why the mom dies. Yeah,
but case in point, I believe in the books or what we've known from the novels, that's not how her mom dies. At least I don't think so, because I don't think they explain
I'm all kinds of confused now.
Yeah, now I don't want to. I'm not
go back
saying this definitively because again, I'm not like an aficionado on freaking like Wizarding World. But from memory serves me correctly, I don't think so. Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, I got to go back and look now because that was the one thing that I did that did. Point
is, what I do know is that his dad was imprisoned. His mother dies. His sister dies. His mother dies. Then Albus has to come back and take care of his siblings, and then eventually his sister dies because of a feud between Aberforth and him and Grindelwald, and they talk about that. They talk about that in the movie, but that's the only thing they talk about. I'm like, what about all the other stuff?
Well, the other thing.
What about the other things?
The other thing that I thought was different was in the stories. It was a battle between Grindelwald, Dumbledore, and Aberforth.
Yes.
Right? So it was a 3-way duel between them.
But they say that in the movie, too.
But in the movie, that's what I heard, unless I heard it wrong. In the movie, Albus made it seem like it was just a fight between Albus and Aberforth. And that Grindelwald was there, but he was just laughing.
It was because that's a problem with it. It was kind of vague, right? Like a lot of stuff in this movie was vague.
Yeah, the way they portrayed it, I was like, that's not really super...
Because... essentially, they made it in the movie, in this new movie, that Aberforth was not for Albus's relationship with Grindelwald. Yeah. He was not. He was like, I don't want you with him.
Right.
So that's why they were fighting. Right. But again, like you said, I don't know if it was the two brothers fighting or all three of them in a fight fighting. But Dumbledore does say in the movie, like he goes, I don't know if it was my spell, his spell, doesn't really matter. Yeah. Point is, she did. So like they kept it very vague. So I'm wondering if that'll be explored in a 4th or 5th movie if we get that far.
That's kind of some of the stuff that I'm hoping is like, man, there's a lot of stuff that I really want to see them resolve. So if they do not continue, that's going to be a bummer, man. Because the other thing too is that you think back to like the Harry Potter films, right? In the stories. And you think about like in the Deathly Hallows where Aberforth is talking to Harry, Hermione, and Ron about, we're talking about this so seriously, about Dumbledore, right? And he's still super, super bitter towards Albus, right? And like even implying that the man had deep secrets and that he hurt a lot of people on his rise to power, as he puts it, right? And it's like the stuff that we saw in this movie did not reflect that.
That's another
thing. It was like he was very compassionate with his brother. He wanted to be a better brother. He was very deeply regretful and remorseful. And they painted him as somebody who was trying to, even the thing bows at him at the end. Into where it could have made him a leader, and he was like rejected. He's like, no, please,
not me.
And it moves on to this other lady that was running for the role.
Well, I guess Secrets, because if you that, and then because the movie basically opens up with, Albus telling Grindelwald at a restaurant or whatever, like, you find out through their conversation is like, hey, we used to work together. Like, you were on my side.
Yeah.
You don't get to turn, like, now, like, with or without you, I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
So maybe but even that, I was hoping they would dive into that deeper, like,
me
saying
too.
like how for so many years, like, he was working with Grindelwald, and how like their whole mission was to find the Deathly Hallows and take over the world. Yeah. They allude to it and they tell you, but it's so surface level that I'm like, oh, come on. Like, there's a lot you can pull from that. Like, freaking Albus and Grindelwald working together.
Yeah.
And for years, like, that's how the relationship built and their time together. Like, that's really cool stuff. And like, I want to see like the turn too. Like, why did you finally get to the point? I mean, they tell us why he got to the point where he's like, no, I'm out. But like, I just wanted more of it.
Yeah, it's understandable. I'm really hoping that they come back and they finish it out, because I really want them. One of the things I really liked about the film that they did do with Albus is they really started to show how mysterious a figure he is and why the legends built up around him and all of that kind of stuff. I thought they did an interesting and fun job starting that. I just want to see them come back and finish it and close some of these gaps that were created. So, I mean, overall, I think we both liked the movie.
We did. I don't know why though. Again, I did pull this up. I want to say before we move on, why it's so polarized. Because I pulled up the reviews, dude, or the scores around.
What are the Rotten Tomatoes at right now?
Okay, so the first one for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, 74 critics, 79 audience. The second one, Crimes of Grindelwald, had a very big drop off. 36 critics, 54 audience. So the audience was basically split right down the middle.
I wonder why that is, though.
I don't know.
Like with the second one.
The second one's my favorite one out of the three. Yeah, so I'm not in that camp.
It's interesting.
But and then the newest one, as of now, again, it's only been out for a few days, but critics 49%, audience 82%. So the audience, this new one, Secrets of Dumbledore, actually has the highest audience score out of the three thus far.
That's what I've seen so far.
So, that's actually very curious.
I mean, it's for those of us that are looking and hoping that they're going to finish this out, that's positive. But the question now is, will that reflect at the box office? Because I will say, you and I were there at the theater last night, and it was not even half full.
No.
And there was plenty of tickets left to go around, and it was opening night. Unlike when we went to see, let's say, Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I mean, packed to the friggin' walls. But it was crazy.
Spider-Man was like what? That was over $1 billion movie, though. This is not going to be that, even in the
no.
So,
but it's a Harry Potter. It's a wizard, I guess, and because obviously Warner Brothers felt the same way, which is why they wanted to bring it back. The Harry Potter series was so wildly successful for them, they thought this was a no-brainer. They went into these movies and these stories. As if this was going to be like 5 home runs for them. And so far, the first one performed pretty well. The second one really underperformed. I think it only made like $680 million worldwide, roughly, but only about 150 to 180 million domestically.
Yeah, which is
I actually had it pulled up here.
That's not even like the budget for the film, I don't think.
I mean, no, and they really look.
The 180 is what I'm talking about. I think that was like a $200, yeah, right. $200 million movie.
Yeah. I mean, and these studios, they really are looking for the domestic dollars.
Yeah.
Because they get a larger cut on the domestic dollars than they do on the international dollars. So yeah, it made just under 160 million domestically, which for a movie of that size is that's seriously underperforming in today's world.
In today's market.
Yeah. So, I'm really curious, and I'm going to be watching to see how it performs. I will say the tomato meter on the critic side has come up quite a bit, about 10% since I last looked at it, a little over 10%. The audience score so far, we'll see how that continues over the weekend as more people go see it and leave reviews on here. But I'm in the similar camp to you. And you know what? I think that's part of the reason where it really has put a damper on these freaking films, because usually with Harry Potter, one of the fun things of franchises like Harry Potter, the MCU, whatever, is that after a movie comes out or whatever, we all come together and we talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just, everybody has the things they like, they don't like, but generally it's fun, right? It's fun. There's a lot of hype around it and blah, blah, blah. There's such a dark cloud around this whole franchise now with all of these controversies.
So unfortunate.
That it just kind of has put a damper on the whole doggone thing. And I don't know how much of the box office results and all of that are from people just really genuinely being polarized in one direction or the other on one topic or the other surrounding, either actors or J.K. Rowling herself, or if it's just maybe it's a combination of all things. But, one of the things I was mentioning to you last night is like how much of this is just like controversy and, controversy fatigue, we'll call it, from the general public. The last few years have just been endless, between the Trump era and, the COVID and all the kind of one thing after the next, people just generally kind of like controversy and just crisised out. And just that general fatigue of just, so if they sense like there's anything about it, it's just like, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to go to the movies and turn things off and just have an escape for a couple of hours. I don't want to, get involved in anything. I wonder how much of, like what's the tipping the scale one way or the other.
I wonder. I mean, I know for me, like none of that, like if an actor, is doing this or doing that, I'm like, cool, great. But I just want to see the movie, the character they're playing. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a fictional thing. It's an escape. I don't care what legal, battle he's going through with his wife in real life. Right. I just want to see the movie, the character that he's playing that's not real. Yeah. If he's good at it, he's good at it, Yeah. So I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I will, I guess I just wish it was more fun, I guess. Because it's even like putting up the episodes, like you see so many comments on the episodes that we're putting up of people making kind of polarized comments and things like that. And I just wish something like this could be more fun.
Yeah.
And I guess that just that's part of the cloud.
It's the Warner Brothers curse. They're cursed.
You coined it now.
The Warner Brothers curse. But that moves into the
staying in Warner Brothers.
The apparent DC Entertainment overhaul that is coming. Yeah. Another overhaul.
Another overhaul.
They were the acquisition with Discovery has finally gone through. The $43 billion purchase is done. And now it seems like
it's not a purchase per se. It's a merger of two companies.
Fine. A $43 billion one that now the CEO of Discovery, David I forgot his name. Zaslav. Yeah, David Zaslav is spearheading as CEO. And he's got some he's basically saying to him that they're leaving money on the table with DC. He recognizes that, hey, you got Superman. Why aren't you using him?
What
are you doing?
And we're going to go through the exclusive article from Variety on this. But that was the most encouraging thing that came out of the whole thing. A lot of it is just, the rest of it is just very ambiguous.
I feel like this part of the podcast is going to make me angry, Tim. Because it's the most common sense thing in the world.
Yeah, all of it is.
In the world. Like,
we've been any DC fan. This is the biggest gripe we've all had for years.
Any schmo off the street, right? Any average Joe will know. Like, you own Disney. What characters do you have to use? I don't know. Maybe Mickey Mouse. Like, that's pretty popular character, right? Maybe we gotta do stuff with the mouse. You own Looney Tunes. Maybe you should probably use Bugs Bunny. You own Warner Brothers DC Comics. Maybe, just maybe, you should use not one of, the most popular and recognizable superhero in the entire world, Superman.
Maybe.
That's coming from a big Batman fan.
You're really getting crazy right now.
That's coming from a big Batman fan, right? But
he's the one who started it all.
Superman unequivocally is the most popular superhero in the world. Love him or hate him, Superman's the most popular one. So
certainly the most recognizable.
For sure. So if you own the rights to that character, knowing everyone and their mother, even in like this little country out of nowhere, knows the Superman logo, maybe, just maybe, you should use that property to your advantage.
DC, on the other hand, is like, he's not the hero we need right now.
It is crazy to me. Like, that's just, man. And the thing too is like, 'cause they're just all about money.
Yeah.
So like, just even looking at it as a money way, it's like, hey, everyone knows who this is. Maybe if we slap Superman on a movie, people will go see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably would.
I don't know, man. Whatever the reasoning is, I do think, I don't know, man. I'm so fatigued by all this stuff because we've done this now, if seemingly like several times in the last few years, of this kind of like revolving door over at, Warner and DC. And there's been so many changes, and there's, you hear there's this shakeup and things are going to change, and then this person's coming on and this person's leaving. And then it kind of has just stayed on course. There's been some positive changes. And there's been some, things have started to move in a better direction for sure. I would say overall, especially in terms of the films. But the thing that we have talked about over and over and over again is that there still has not been relayed a definitive course.
Yeah.
And the new CEO of, Warner Brothers Discovery is the new actual company, media company, is, David Zaslav. He's saying the right things.
Good old Zaslav.
He,
his name is so much fun to say.
Good old Zazzy. So he's saying the right things. He's saying a lot of things that all of us DC fans who have recognizing like some of the issues in terms of continuity and direction and all this kind of stuff. He's addressing that. And he's saying this is a problem. There's things not being used. There's a lack of creative and business direction, and we need to get that straightened out. So I guess let's dive into the article. And we can kind of go through it like point by point to some degree.
Yeah, Variety got the exclusive on it, and then every other major site kind of went off that because again, Variety had the exclusive. Right. But I guess we'll mainly be reading off of Variety since they're the ones who broke the news.
Yeah. You want me to start it?
Yeah, go for it.
So the new owners of all things Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are exploring an overhaul of DC entertainment. Multiple sources close to the situation told Variety. It's been less than a week since Discovery closed its $43 billion deal for Warner Media, joining one of the largest producers of reality programming with one of the most venerable entertainment brands under the new moniker of Warner Brothers Discovery. David Zaslav, the CEO of the combined companies, and top leadership have been toying with the idea of turning DC into its own solidified content vertical, the sources says. So right off the bat, that to me is good news.
It's another thing. It's like,
now they said they're toying with it, so it's not a set thing.
But it's like, again, I'm no like CEO, businessman, like all this stuff. But it's like, from a common sense perspective, it just seems like, hey, Marvel Studios, huh? They have their own thing, right? Like,
yeah,
they've pretty much taken over all of cinema for the last decade. We have DC. It's literally the rival company. DC Studios? Like, it's like, what, guys?
I mean, how long have we been saying, like, what is the number one thing that DC's films and DC's course is missing? It's missing a Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
It's missing their Kevin Feige.
Tired.
They need one. You are. It's so
because it's like the most the most common sense thing. God.
But it goes, anyway, the Variety article goes on to say the move would potentially affect DC feature film development in the Warner Brothers Pictures Group, streaming series at Warner Brothers Television, and the creative arm within DC proper, all in an effort to have the disparate elements more closely aligned in order to maximize the value of the superhero stable, one often seen as punching up against Marvel.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
That's weird. That's kind of sounds familiar. Before the merger closed, Zaslav vetted candidates with experience in creating and nurturing blockbuster intellectual property with a goal of potentially finding someone to serve as a creative and strategic czar similar to what Marvel has in one Kevin Feige. These are good things. This is at least the right tone. And Arris is ready to, his head is ready to pop. One of the candidates, the article goes on, one of the candidates included Emma Watts, a former top film executive at 20th Century Studios and Paramount, but it does not appear that Watts will take the job. One insider suggested that Zaslav was less interested in finding a creative guru and more eager to hire someone who had the type of business background needed to keep all the different factions at DC working more harmoniously. That could be both good and bad.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that one's like, I don't know that. I don't know. Like, whenever they put the business, which means the money, before the creative, I'm like, hey, whoa.
Slow your roll. Now, if they're saying a strong creative who also has good business sense and a good business background to coincide.
But that's not what they said.
If it is, that's what they mean. Because it says, it says less interested.
Yeah, exactly.
Creative guru and more. Yeah, so this is problematic.
Yeah, the money is outweighing the creative.
Yeah, and that will be a problem. That will just lead to more.
See, Marvel got lucky with Feige because he's
both.
He's a fantastic creative and business.
He's first
head.
And foremost a fan.
Yeah,
this is why it works.
I mean, he produced the Fox and X-Men films. That's where he came from, and then he merged over.
He was such a fan. I mean, he went all in.
Yeah, so
all in.
Can I say something though? How many mergers and acquisitions do we have to go through for them to finally figure out, hey, one, we need an end goal, like an idea. This is our next 5-10 years. 2, maybe we should have a person running this all where it all filters through him or her. 3, maybe use Superman. Okay, I'm done.
Until Disney buys them. That's why. All right. Insiders say that Zaslav believes that the success of the merger, one that has left the company highly leveraged, will rest in no small part. Ooh, that's kind of an important part right there. The success of the merger, one that has left the company highly leveraged. That's debt, people. That's debt. Will rest in no small part on unlocking the full potential of the DC Comics universe of characters. Discovery insiders believe that although DC has achieved cinematic success with the recent films such as Aquaman and The Batman, it lacks a coherent, creative, and brand strategy.
Wait, you're trying to say they don't know where they're going with their universe?
Are you implying, Zazie, that there's a lack of direction at DC?
Hold on, Mr. CEO man.
Yeah, let's calm
You're telling me that the company that you're now running doesn't know what they're doing with their DC universe on the cinematic side of things?
You know what they call that? They call that a crock.
That's, no. They know exactly. They haven't changed a thing, Tim.
Some crap.
They haven't changed a dang thing. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
They've been so on target, knowing exactly where they're headed.
Clear in their messaging.
Dude, everything.
Come on now.
The continuity's not a mess.
Preach.
We know where all the timeline is.
Tell them.
We know if the Snyderverse is or isn't a thing. We know all that.
Oh, yeah.
That is the most sarcastic I think I've been.
in your life, maybe. Discovery believes that several top-shelf characters such as Superman, this is the good part, have been left to languish and need to be revitalized.
Oh, Zazie.
Oh, speak to me.
There it is. There it is, Zaz.
You know that Henry Cavill is somewhere right now going, like just feeling the spirit coming on him.
Like a soulful,
he's just going to church somewhere.
Thank you, Jesus. I pray to the Lord that is Krypton.
Oh, Lord. They also believe that projects like Todd Phillips' Joker are a shining example of how second-build characters from the DC library can and should be exploited. DC, now the writer threw in a little, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is another example. However, Birds of Prey did not do so well.
No, it didn't.
So
I do like Margot
Robbie. That's a
Robbie.
Writer's ad, not necessarily the CEO.
I do like Margot Robbie, though, as Harley Quinn.
I do too, but she may her day as Harley Quinn.
She was great in Suicide Squad though.
Yeah,
the new one.
No, she's great as Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
it's just that she's been used quite a bit.
She needs a better script.
That's fair.
It's the same thing you could
say.
But
Birds of Prey, dude, she produced that sucker.
She needs a better script.
Yeah. Anyway, DC has started to figure out ways for its big screen films to inspire more streaming content. Recent examples include the HBO Max Peacemaker, which was a spinoff of the Suicide Squad.
It was a great show.
As well as an upcoming planned series on Colin Farrell's The Penguin and Gotham City's police force. But Gotham City's police force thing was already kind of in flux.
Yeah.
But the company believes that DC must do more to grow its approach to comic book fare, including bolstering gaming. Under Walter Hamada, who took over DC Films for John Berg and Jeff Johns in 2018, the unit has achieved more consistency in terms of both critical and commercial reception to the company's movies, which is very true. He is under contract until the end of 2023 and could play an important role in whatever Zaslav has planned. Zaslav has pledged to find, this is big.
This is really big.
Zaslav has pledged to find $3 billion in synergies in the newly merged companies, a signal of how important cost-cutting will be to Warner's new owners. Mining DC's library of characters could help control spending as Warner Brothers Discovery owns the underlying intellectual property. Insiders say upcoming DC film projects, including a sequel of Zachary Levi's Shazam, a sequel to Jason Momoa's Aquaman, the long-awaited franchise started Black Adam with Dwayne Johnson, and a third installment of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. So that last bit there,
$3 billion in synergies.
So what they're saying there, that is a very important part of this. So while they're saying a lot of good things, and while some of the things in here are long overdue in terms of recognizing the problem,
yeah,
that last little bit there, gang, that's a big one. Because that's telling you, and it was kind of sprinkled all throughout the article of like, hey, money's a problem. We're in a lot of debt. This merger cost a lot of money. So we're going to be looking to tighten the belt. And
$3 billion's a lot.
Dude, that's no joke.
So they've already let go during this merger of a lot of their, higher ups, which, they're probably getting rid of some $1 million salaries there to free up some space. But $3 billion, dude.
I mean, a company of this size, $3 billion isn't as big as some might think. But I mean, when you're trying to leverage intellectual property, particularly in film and television, $3 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, I guess we should say in layman's terms, $3 billion just means they're looking to free up money.
They're looking to cut costs.
Cut costs, yeah. They're like, we need to release whatever we got to release to get this number.
And this could end up with what we had talked about previously, in that you could really start to see with this new merger and this new emerged company of Warner Discovery, you could really start to see a heavy licensing of these characters to outside sources to bring in more outside capital.
My problem with that is it's contradictory to what good old Zaslav was saying in here, where it's like, if you start licensing out, it's going to be a lot harder to, have ringmaster.
It would have to be strategic.
Right. It's possible, a lot more hard though, to ringmaster. Okay, that's not going to line up with this. That's not going to line up with, because it's like, to really, really do that, you need to do what Marvel Studios did, is have everything in one studio, the Marvel Studio. So you need to create a DC Studios and have everything under that. Because if you license that, start licensing to this, production company, that movie company, that book company, it's like, you can't. It's the whole thing. That's what happened with Marvel in the first place. Yep. Fox had Fantastic Four and all this, and the X-Men, and Sony had Spider-Man, and you can't keep all that stuff together. So I think that would be a big mistake on the movie front, because clearly the fans overall want something coherent, right? Like, I'm down for the Joker, the Todd Phillips stuff, the Elseworlds type thing where it's contained, but there's definitely a need for we need to have a coherent universe here as well.
What I'm taking away from this is that, short of a couple of more recent successes, we could be seeing this year and early next, we could be seeing the end of the entirety of the Zack Snyder universe and all of these characters and a reset.
Well, have you been
where they bring everything into a very targeted order? We're going to hit this, we're going to hit this, we're going to hit this, and all of these scattered things, which is what we've been talking about for a long time, how everything's just kind of scattered. There's no clear direction. They're going to, this is what I'm taking away, is they could just cut all that loose and start with a relatively, not entirely, but a relatively clean slate and go, okay, we're going to rope all this in and we're going to create a continuous through line with a clear direction. And we're going to make stuff that makes sense and we know is going to make money, and all these little side projects outside of things like he referenced the Joker movie, utilizing some of these other characters inside the catalog that you can do breakouts with that you know are already fan favorites and will work.
What if Zaslav restores the Snyderverse?
Dude, I don't, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that they will, because you're continuing what he's saying is a problem. Right.
But see, because after Justice League is where everything fell apart. The Justice League that's what really ruined the DCU.
I don't think so.
What do you mean?
I don't think
for sure, because BVS was received polarized, but then Justice League nail in the coffin.
Things started really falling apart with BVS.
But it was still alive and going. I mean, he was doing Justice League.
It was, but that didn't mean it was coherent. It didn't mean that it was being readily accepted.
It wasn't readily, okay.
BVS performed, way underperformed. Well, Justice League underperformed even more.
I'm talking about continuity, not fan reception is what I'm saying here. So
yeah, but they're looking at money.
Yes,
they're going to want to be like, what's going to work at the box office?
Right. And I think after the success of the Snyderverse, they might be like, hey, if we were to go back on that route, because that's the weird thing with this, right? So you had BVS, it was polarized, Justice League, everyone was like, this sucks. And they're like, this sucks because Snyder didn't do it. So it was restore the Snyderverse. We want to see his version. Years later, we see his version. Overwhelmingly, DC fans are like, this is great. Right? I mean, so much so it got made. Yeah. They gave them the millions and millions of dollars to make it and finish it. So it's possible, especially with this, restore the Snyderverse thing still going. What if they go back to okay, we'll just go back to that because this was successful. We'll do Justice League 2 and 3.
I mean, I guess anything's possible. If I was a gambling man, I would bet that this more puts a nail in the coffin of that never happening with Warner Brothers.
Maybe, and I don't know, the Ben Affleck thing, there's weird because
think about how much money it would cost them to finish that.
Oh, hundreds of millions of dollars.
$300 to $400 million, probably.
Yes, but I mean, that would be pretty big.
And because what they're talking about there is they're talking about maximizing dollar potential. Spending as little as possible for maximum profit outcome. And that I would be shocked if they looked at the Snyderverse and went, yeah, that's what we need to do. Is we need to dump another $300-400 million into another mega tentpole Snyderverse film that is going to continue the very thing that we're probably looking to cut ties with.
My problem with the DCEU is you have to pick. I feel like they only really have one option at this point. 1, go back to the Snyderverse. 2, reset. Because now with the whole Ezra Miller thing going on, that he may not be able to play the Flash anymore because of, the craziness he does in real life.
This is another reason that backs up what I'm saying. There's so many different reasons.
Although Ezra Miller is also in the Snyder Cut, so they wouldn't let that happen either.
Right.
Oh, man.
So there's just so many reasons. You've got the people who play the characters are getting older. They're going to want to go young. My guess, because they're going to be thinking long term. What's going to be the long term plan here? So they're going to be looking to reset this whole thing. I would be shocked if they don't.
Yeah,
otherwise you are hamstringing yourself for years.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, you have two options. You could do the Snyderverse, give us 2 and 3, finish that out, or you just everything reset. But it's weird. It's this weird thing. It's not that easy because you're already in with Aquaman. You're 2. Yep. You're 2 in now because 2 is already filmed. It's coming out later this year. The first one was $1 billion. I would imagine the second one's going to be comparable, maybe as much, maybe a little less, but enough to certainly get a sequel, a third. I would imagine. I would imagine it's going to get a trilogy. I would think.
Maybe.
Black Adam. It's The Rock.
Yeah.
You would, if I'm a gambling man, I would imagine that's going to be super successful.
That's just going to start,
and they're going to want to do a sequel. It's The Rock. He's the biggest star in Hollywood, literally.
Yeah.
Then what else? Those are the big ones.
Shazam,
Fury of the Gods.
Shazam, yeah.
That one's kind of on the lower. That didn't do as well.
Still a Wonder Woman 3, Wonder Woman 3 out there.
So, but there's these things that are all connected to what Snyder already, they're going. So it's Flashpoint was going to be the thing where I'm like, okay, well, you can fix it and make everything work with that. But now with Ezra Miller potentially out, being blacklisted from Warner Brothers in general, it's okay. But then again, it's Flashpoint. So Flashpoint, that's why it's the perfect thing to fix anything. You could even do reshoots where at the end of that movie, they cast someone else's Flash, and that explains why Ezra Miller looks different. Right. Because it's a new Flash of this Earth, and now that's the main continuity Flash.
Yeah.
So you could still do it,
Yeah,
it's just more work now.
The question is, I guess, for me, because again,
I know everyone's like, Grant
Flash
Gustin, CW Flash, Grant Gustin.
Leave that on the table.
You already met Ezra Miller.
Yeah,
that was their first crossover.
So they've already finished the Flash. Aquaman is done pretty much. Shazam also almost done.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Black Adam, as you said, pretty much almost done. That comes out in October. And then there's a Wonder Woman 3 in development.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where we stop. Am I forgetting something?
Batgirl's already done filming. That's in the DCEU.
Oh, that's right.
J.K. Simmons is actually her Commissioner Gordon.
So I'm even wondering like what's going to happen with that.
It's done. I mean, they're editing. It's in post. They're not.
I'm saying in terms of will this just be a one and done?
I don't know. Blue Beetle is getting up off on its feet. That was supposed to be DCU.
I guess my thing is that because we know that whatever they already had in the works, they're just going to finish it. So I'm wondering if that's just going to be like, here's all of this, and then we're done.
That's another thing that it alludes to. Like you said, like everything that's been greenlit or that's currently filming or in post, clearly you're just going to finish it.
I mean, here's a thought. Well, no, because then you'd have to recast Flash, which I don't think is a big deal. But
I would actually think a lot of people would prefer recasting.
I'm in that camp.
Recasting Flash.
But
I always thought Chris Pine would be a great Flash.
Release all these. That's an interesting.
He's
one.
Stephen Trevor in the
He's
DCU,
now,
but I thought he would be cool.
But you could maybe do the movies that are up and then let Zack Snyder shoot one last Justice League culmination to close the whole thing out and bring all these movies that they're doing with Black Adam, blah, 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 bring it all to a close in a culmination in this last Justice League, seal the whole thing off. That's the bookend. And then they move on with a reset. Because that would mean you only have to shoot one more movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bring Zach in, give the fans what they, the fans what they want in terms of the Snyderverse. Let him come in, bookend the whole thing with another 4-hour epic.
But what's like,
you know what I mean? They'll make their money back, and then they reset from there. It's
so frustrating talking about the DCU because I'm such a big DC fan.
Yeah,
that it's just so frustrating for me.
And they've created so many more loose ends now.
But that's the thing, like, where are they going? Like, I want to know where they're going because we got the Snyder cut, but like apparently higher ups were like, that's Elseworld. That's not continuity now.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So how are you going to explain where Jason Momoa's Aquaman, Gal Gadot's Flash, Wonder Woman, and like where do they stand now? Because they were built, and even their movies come off of like the Justice League and BVS and all that stuff, like very much ingrained from the Snyderverse. So he cast them in those roles. That's Snyder's baby. So now you got the Flash, which introducing Keaton Batman. And we don't know, but everyone with rumors is assuming that Ben Affleck will be killed off. His Batman will be killed off in that movie.
Which would make sense.
Keaton will now be an older Batman in the Batman going forward because he's also a Batman in Batgirl.
Right.
There's actually been leaked set footage of him on the Batgirl set interacting with Gordon and Batgirl leaked photos. We know he's in that movie for sure. To what extent, we don't know, but it seems like a decent role. So he's in The Flash. Then he's going to appear in Batgirl. So clearly they're using Keaton going forward
to some degree.
Is he the main Batman? I don't know. A prominent Batman. He's in 2 films.
Right.
So, but it's like, but what? But how? Like, I guess we have to watch Flashpoint to see. But it's like at this point with Ezra Miller and everything, it's like, do you have to go do reshoots now? Like, are you just gonna forgive him and let him come back? Or are you gonna be like, no, you're crazy, bro. We need to recast you. Like, what? What's happening? This is why every time we talk about this, I feel like I just get mad now because it's like it's always something. Like for years, I've been like, Flashpoint will fix it, and now I'm like, with all these mergers and acquisitions and like recasting, and maybe we can't use this guy anymore, and Ben Affleck doesn't want to do it anymore, and this director doesn't want to do that, so we're gonna do the Batman. It's like, okay, so you're just throwing things at a wall and hoping
that's what they've been doing for years, and that's what's got us to this point.
It's so frustrating.
Which is what leads me, especially when you hear them and read them, where they're heavily talking about some of the main priorities is 1, cleaning up continuity and creative direction, and 2, roping in budgets and cutting costs. Those 2 things, to me, it makes a lot more sense that you're going to see a full reset. Because all the stuff they've been doing is 1, it's kind of all over the place, and 2, really expensive. And the more all over the place you are, the more expensive it is because they're just developing all these different things, hoping that something works to see what people like, what they don't like. And some of it has been great, but it gets expensive. And if they're looking to really rope that in, that's going to lead to a reset.
My big problem, because I'm a continuity junkie. Like, I love lore and history and how everything connects us. I think that's one of the coolest parts about comic books, especially you've been reading for a long time. You could read this book that came out this week, and if something big happens, they'll reference something that happened like years ago. I think that's part of the fun, especially being a longtime fan. So I'm big on continuity in all of fiction. So I think that's one of the most frustrating things with me with the DCEU. And you could say what you will about new Star Wars or Star Wars in general right now, whether you like the new trilogy, whether you like the Disney Plus shows, whether you like their games, comics, or whatnot. Say what you will, no matter where you land, their continuity all lines up.
Is on point.
Is on point. Like, whether you like it,
for the most part.
Well, I mean,
some of it has been.
Some of they've rebooted it, but like it all is pretty dang good. Like it lines up, and they figure out ways to make it work and stuff. Yep. So whether you like it, hate it, love it, continuity is there. Yeah. Same thing with Marvel, with the MCU. Their
by comparison to DC, you have to really get in the weeds and critique.
I don't think I'm saying this like wholeheartedly. I don't even think the directors of these films could tell me 100% where DCEU continuity lies.
No.
So it's like if someone the directors of these films who are making these stories don't know definitively where things are lying, then what are we talking about, bro? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's happening?
Oh man, yeah.
Jeez.
As you can see, Arris is scarred. He's traumatized. He's carrying some trauma. I'm
such a big DC fan. Like, Batman's my guy too. So like, I say it all the time. Batman's my number one character in fiction. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I'm a massive Marvel fan. But like, DC will always have a special place in my heart because Batman and DC is what got me into like that. So like, it really strikes a chord with me that they keep getting the live action side of things so wrong. And like, again, I'm no like businessman or whatever, but I'm like, it is literally common sense. like it's the most common sense thing in the world. Like, to have a cohesive idea where you're going to go, have like one person that it's funneling it all through, and stick to it. Yeah. Like, it's common sense.
Well, again, in the last few years, they have done some stuff that has really been good. The Joker, the Batman, they've done some stuff that have been, really fun pieces added to kind of DC live action, lore. But again, the lack of direction has gone on a shockingly long time. The lack of a clear, overarching direction. I've genuinely, even now, I'm shocked at how long it's gone on.
It's crazy. You know what it is? You've said it before. I'm thinking about it here too. It's because the amount of untapped potential there is with the DC lore and characters, right? Because if done right and well, it could probably or would be better than even the Marvel universe with their lineage and characters.
It's
all opinion. It's all
Marvel fans would argue that.
Yeah,
but it is from in terms of depth of story, depth of character. Yeah, at bare minimum, they'd be right there alongside them.
For sure. Like, it's just that it's not been like, again, they've had the Nolan trilogy, really great. They've had, the Batman. They've had lots of great movies. I'm not trying to they've done lots of good things in film.
Batman specifically.
Yeah, Batman, right? But it's like, it's kind of the thing I'm thinking of. It's like having a son or a daughter where the potential. Like, they're super smart, what they can do if they just put their mind to it, but they're not tapping into it. And that's what this is like. You have Batman, dude, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, literally the Justice League, some of those popular characters of all of fiction,
without doubt.
And you're just leaving it. What are you doing? Figure it out.
It's skyrocketing. Yeah. I mean, we are kind of at another big corporate shakeup with a merger.
If we're having this conversation in a year, Tim, I swear I'm going to walk right off this variant set.
No.
I'm done, guys.
No, I think this is going to tell us in the next year, I think we're going to get a lot more finally,
Yeah.
I think we're going to finally start getting a lot more information about where DC is going in live action, in terms of even in television.
Yeah.
We're going to get a lot more information because there's just been so much, even in the comic side, how much has been up in the air and in flux in the comic side. They're pumping out about 650 Batman books right now.
Tim.
But it's like there's been a lot of ambiguity.
Did you read Flashpoint Beyond issue 0?
I read a little bit of it. I have not read the whole thing.
Well, we got an episode coming out. Or is it already out at the time of this?
No, it comes out this Wednesday.
Okay. Comes out this Wednesday. Johns is writing it.
Yes, Johns is writing it.
Johns is writing it. Okay. Homeboy be taking some jabs.
I started picking up on some. I read the first quarter of the book.
He's got things to say.
Yeah.
And he's making Thomas Wayne say them. Because
are you shocked?
I was.
It's like a slow clap.
Slow clap while reading. I'm like, preach, Jeff Johns. Preach it. I'm like, yeah, because he's literally been saying what we've been saying about Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
He references the episode's come out, but he references all the changes that's been going on. And he references what Tom King did with Thomas Wayne and the Crisis and the Reverse Flash, what they did with Thomas Wayne. It's he's kind of in a very passive aggressive, meta way, why? He literally says Flashpoint was fixed. It was right. And now it's not. Why? Literally that's the story. Not really a spoiler, but the whole plot of the book is it was fixed and now it's not.
Yeah.
For why? And I'm like, Johns, I've been asking this for 3 years. Tell me.
Speak to me, Jeff. Yeah, we're going to be shooting that this upcoming week, and we'll be getting the episode out to you guys. So I'll be reading it before then. But I started picking up on some of that in the first quarter of the book, and I was like,
oh man, I can't wait for the rest of the story now because it's yes, if this is going to be a very meta way or passive aggressive way for Johns to be maybe you should have done that. I'm for it. Because he's say what you will about Jeff Johns, that guy is a DC historian, and he's
big time.
He's the Filoni of DC. I feel where he could just spit out lore and especially Justice Society stuff and all that deep Flash lineage and stuff. He could take it and make it all work. So I hope if I'm gonna tell you something. Tim. If by the end of this story he's I fixed it for you again, guys. And they go out and immediately mess it up. I don't even know.
Dude,
I don't even know.
Honest to God, I just said it. I don't know. And some of these books are great. But listen, DC, as a Batman fan, we need to chill out on the Batman.
It's always been true that there's always been more Batman books, but there is a lot.
But right now, it is it's like they're trying to publish every Batman story ever conceived or conceptualized all at once and get it out there before they can't or something.
Well, you know what it is too that doesn't help? It's because I think there's literally around 10 Batman books where Batman is the main character, but then you also have Red Hood,
yes,
Nightwing, Harley Quinn, Bat Family. So it's which, I'm a big Batman fan.
Sure.
I like all that. And
there has always been, as you said, there's always been a lot of those. But just specifically the Batman books, Batman-centric, it's insane how many different Batman books. Yeah. And they keep announcing more.
Because it's also with all the Elseworld type stuff or Black Label stuff, they're doing stuff that's not in continuity. So they're just doing we can do this Batman and this Batman because it doesn't have to line up with the main, main Earth continuity. So,
yeah. I
mean, but we're getting DC vampires and stuff like that is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, point is that if they, through all of this, if they find their way back to a streamlined, clear direction, and we finally get one, whatever it is, that will be a good day.
Yeah. I'm just.
We'll hold out hope.
Yeah, I'm just very excited to see what Johns is gonna do with this because it is. You just gotta read. If you guys are big DC fans, you gotta read Flashpoint Beyond issue 0. It is, and especially if you've been tracking what's going on in the last years, you pick up. You're Why you say that, Johns?
I'm going to be watching very closely, man. I'm going to be watching very closely, especially because, as we already mentioned previously, you've got Flashpoint Beyond hitting in conjunction with the death of the Justice League and what Josh Williamson is doing on the Justice League. I'm wondering if there's going to be headed into what is the name of the event? The DC event that is the death of the Justice League is leading into.
Oh my gosh, we're doing an episode.
Yeah.
You made me forget just by asking me.
Oh man. Now I have to look.
I don't know why I want to say Judgment Day. It's not Judgment Day.
It's not Judgment Day.
T2 Judgment Day. Dun 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 dun.
Good Lord.
What is it? We have it in our schedule.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. That's what I'm trying to pull up right now. But they've got that event coming up. DC does the death of the Justice League leads into this year's DC event for them, but they're going to be happening in parallel again, just like what happened with what was it, Death Metal and we just said it. What's wrong with me with names lately?
Flashpoint Beyond?
No. Jeff John's last major, Doomsday Clock.
Doomsday Clock, yeah.
So you've got those things happening simultaneously again, and it's going to be like, well, Dark Crisis.
Dark Crisis, right.
DC's Dark Crisis event. So you're going to have that going on. Also, at the same time, you've got Flashpoint Beyond going on, just like the last time. So I'm going to be watching very closely again this time, as I'm sure we all will, to see, is this going to be another thing where Jeff Johns sets out on a course, or will it be a totally else world and it's more detached this time?
I'm curious why they brought him back
each other.
That's actually, I'm like,
very interesting.
Were you like, okay, please fix it?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd be surprised.
Like, how did that pitch go? Did he pitch to them? He's like, you need to let me fix this, or did they go to him like, hey, you want to do the sequel to Flashpoint?
I think the more likely scenario is that he just said, hey, I have a good story to tell, and it's going to be off by itself this time. Because there's but I'm going to be certainly watching to see, because again, otherwise, if you brought him in to fix it, you wouldn't be doing the Dark Crisis event separated from him simultaneously.
I wonder how closely him and Josh, if at all, are they working together?
I guess it depends on how they're intertwined, if they are.
Because they have to.
Because the whole Thomas Wayne story is on a different world,
right? But I mean, it's going. That's the thing with the Flashpoint Beyond. It's actually it's actually picking up on the main Earth too. Because like Doomsday Clock, literally the issue starts off.
This is true.
It literally starts off with the main Batman and characters that John created from Doomsday Clock. So it's almost a sequel to Doomsday Clock and Flashpoint at the same time. So it's jumping back and forth to realities.
Yeah, but which is gonna affect most is my thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could just be like, you need to let me fix Thomas Wayne, because he should have never tried to do that to Bruce.
I don't know. We're gonna find out very soon, and hopefully, just overall, we're gonna be starting to get a cleaned up direction for DC.
Yes.
Here's hoping. Fingers crossed.
But I think that brings today's podcast to a close, Tim.
Yep, we're done talking about Zazzy.
Yeah, good old Zazzy. But on that note, guys, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.